Hi, this is Bob Scully, and welcome to another edition of The World Show, Entrepreneurs, the Picture of Health series. Have a look at this. It's from a dynamic young company called IntelGenx's, and it says on the label, thin film, which is what it is. That doesn't tell you the whole story, obviously. Modern medicine is making great strides in surgery, in miracle drugs, but also in medical tools. Tools like this thin film, which will be explained to you in a minute. A brilliant scientist named Horst Zerbe and a brilliant CEO named Godin together are making great strides aiming to conquer difficult diseases like Alzheimer's, like opioid addiction, nicotine addiction, and they're doing wonderfully at it. Here they are. Horst Zerbe and Godin, welcome. And your field is drug delivery. When I hear that, of course, I think back to my grandmother when she used to send me quick to the drugstore to get some aspirin for her. Or I think back to those kids on bicycles that used to deliver drugs to all the people in the neighborhood. But this is very different. What you're doing is something far more sophisticated, important, and innovative. You are the author, Horst, to some extent, of those little films that people put on their tongue to distribute either medicine or mouthwash throughout the body. And this is akin to nicotine patches that people put on their skin. And it's a revolution in not only the delivery of the drugs, but their efficiency. So you are the pioneers of that.
Well, we are some of the pioneers. We're not the sole pioneer. We're not claiming that. But to talk about or to comment a little on drug delivery, what you just brought up, the purpose of drug delivery is to deliver a drug to the required site of action and in the quantity that's required to achieve the therapeutic effect. Many conventional medications don't actually do that. And so if you look at our films, that's what we're doing. We are developing and manufacturing oral films. The purpose of that is to provide a system that makes sure that the drug reaches the bloodstream at the required rate, and that the drug is delivered in the required quantity.
And Andre, what you and Horst are doing really is advancing pharmaceutical science, because the more primitive method before involved a doctor saying to a patient, here's a prescription, go fill it out, and then take these pills. But of course, you'll have to wait 2 or 3 hours when you take one for your stomach to digest that, and then we'll see if that's enough or not, or we'll adjust the dosage. That is really prehistory compared to the sophistication of what you're giving, immediate absorption and exact dosage.
Yes, I mean, our technology, obviously, like Horst mentioned, improves bioavailability and also the quantity of the drug in your bloodstream. So, and it bypasses the liver and all the digestive system. So, therefore, you don't get all the side effects that you would get with a conventional medication. So this is probably the most interesting things about our delivery as opposed to conventional delivery is because you get so many more benefits than if you were going to take conventional drugs.
And Andre, I didn't have a eureka moment while studying this. I had a caramel moment. I don't know if that ad still runs, but I think everybody remembers how do you get the caramel in the chocolate bar and so forth. And when I opened the box to look at some of your samples, we can see IntelGen thin film. It's certainly not a misnomer. It is extremely thin. That's what struck me. I said, how in the world could they get real sophisticated medicine into something like this? I can understand that it melts once it's on the tongue, but how do you do this? So that was my caramel question.
I mean, that's that's the secret, of the film technology. Obviously, there is a process that we first have to blend the active ingredient with some polymers, and then after we have to go through the coating. Obviously, we have some proprietary technology here, so there is and some trade secret and some obviously some know-how that IntelGenx has over even though there's few competition, there is a little bit of competition in that field, but it's all about expertise. Also, R&D. The R&D is extremely important in this in drug delivery. It's the heart of the company, and since we now have a manufacturing facility in the back, because it's quite recent. When I joined the company 4 years ago, there was no manufacturing activities. It was part of the projects to get there at some point, so to become a full-service company. So now that we have all this expertise, and obviously we cannot reveal everything, but it was quite unique and quite interesting when you see how those thin films are being made, and it takes a lot of expertise, and we have I always like to say that we have the co-developer of the Listerine strip as ours, so we probably have the most experienced person in that field.
And there's an old debate in biotech, but actually in all high-tech companies, that do extended and advanced research. And it's a debate that will always be there because it's a difficult dilemma. And it's the choice between protecting what you've discovered or developed, protecting it by patent, or protecting it by trade secret. And we just heard the word trade secret. And so I can see you seem to have made that choice. But it's always difficult because both protections can coexist occasionally, and both are needed, but they're not always that easy to apply together.
You know what, Bob? There certainly is, and you're making a very interesting point. We do have a broad patent portfolio that protects our various technologies. But the thing about patents is, once it gets issued, it gets published, so everybody can read it up and then can try to reverse engineer. And that's the advantage of trade secrets, because there you just keep everything completely confidential. Now, going to our situation, this leads directly to our strategic decision to convert the company from previously and initially an R&D company into a full-blown manufacturing organization, because under our previous model, I started out this company as an R&D company. Under our previous model, we had been under the necessity, if you will, to subcontract commercial manufacturing to a CMO, contract manufacturing organization. Now, in our business, in the film business, every CMO is at the same time a competitor. So, being an R&D organization and being required to subcontract manufacturing means that you share your trade secrets, your intellectual property with competitors, and if you will, give it away for free. We didn't want that, and that's why pretty early on in the game I made the decision to transform the company into a full-service company, including commercial manufacturing services.
For more control, really.
Yes, full control over our IP.
And Andre, even though you've simplified part of the problem by going with trade secrets, you're still not, it seems to me, you're still not completely immune from reverse engineering, because a gung-ho competitor who might not have the key to your safe with the magic formula can still buy the product at the drugstore and really work hard at reverse engineering, take it apart and do all kinds of tests and so on. In that sense, only a patent would protect you.
But I think we can't say that reverse engineering is impossible, but I think that the more we keep and develop things in-house, the stronger we get with time. And that's what I've seen here. I mean, the company is about, improving in all areas of from inception of formulation up to the manufacturing of that final product. There is multiple steps, and it takes multiple years to get there. And at each step of the way, this is where we develop these. We can call it trade secret, or we can call it household ways of developing things and working at projects. And this is something that we will always invest in. And even though I can't say that it's impossible, it would be very, very difficult to copy some things that we do.
And how does it work exactly? I mean, I can assume that the film is so thin, and I've seen the Listerine patches and so on. I can assume that melts on the tongue from body heat simply. And the nicotine patch stays in place, obviously, and delivers it, I suppose, over time by piercing the skin. What else? I mean, how does it really work to be such a good delivery system?
Transdermal products like the nicotine patch, they stay intact, as you correctly say, and then through a process which is called passive diffusion, the drug, the nicotine, leaves the adhesive and penetrates the skin. Oral films work a little differently. They disintegrate in the mouth, under the influence of saliva mostly. So you say they melt. That is not necessarily correct. It would be more correct to describe the process as disintegration. And through disintegration, the active gets released in the oral cavity and becomes available for absorption through the oral mucosa.
And this seems like such a promising field because of its efficiency, simplicity, and had all the markings of a good idea, whether it's the patch or the film. I'm wondering, I know there are other applications with other medicines, but are there other techniques, indirect techniques, that are sort of in the same family and that you're also working on? Because in the end, we may say goodbye to the little bottle of pills, and all the better, because we'll be getting our medicine much more efficiently. But what else can we work on in this area?
Oh yeah, there are. As I briefly mentioned before, the process through which the drug penetrates through the skin, or for that matter, through the oral mucosa, is called passive diffusion. Mm-hmm. Now, there are also techniques available. We currently don't do that, but there are also techniques available that allow active diffusion, meaning that the active drug is actively forced through the skin. Mm-hmm. There are electrical techniques that do that. People then wear something that resembles a wristwatch, and that provides a current, and the current drives the active, the drug actively through a skin. And you can do a similar thing with oral films if you want to force more complex molecules through a mucosa.
And there, of course, are other delivery mechanisms we're all familiar with and we don't like very much, no one, like syrups that taste terrible and injections with long needles. Is this going to put those things out of business? Are we seeing the end of those kind of primitive techniques?
We hope so. I think
sense.
yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, there is some limitation though as to how much loading you can put onto a film. Mm-hmm. So so far what we've been able to achieve is maybe 40 to 50 milligram is probably the maximum that we can put on a film. So those big anti-inflammatory pills could never be, on a film like we do. But most of medication can be, adapted to this drug delivery technique. And I think that there is more and more interest from pharmaceutical companies to use this drug delivery to either deliver new molecule or existing molecule to be more efficient and have less side effects like I said earlier. So there's a lot of advantage to move to a thin film strip as opposed to standard medication.
Also, entrepreneurially speaking, I'm curious, there must be a bit of a chicken and egg question when it comes to actually bringing these things to market or to patients and doctors. Let's imagine for a minute that a company develops a great drug on a very important front, Alzheimer's, for instance, and they go through the whole FDA triple trial and all that, and they've got a winner. And it's logical for film, for what you do. Who calls on whom? Do they come to you and say, we want a film version of this? In which case, I guess most of the profit would remain with them. Or do you go to them and say, listen, if you put this on our film, you'll make many more sales? Which is it?
It goes both ways. Yeah. In some cases, companies come to us, see an opportunity in formulating their new drug into our novel delivery system. Mm-hmm. In other cases, and I would think in the majority of the cases, we actually come up with the idea of improving a product by applying our drug delivery technology. So we would then initially develop a prototype and then reach out to potential partners, offering them. So there is somewhat of an educational process involved. We sometimes have to educate our industry partners, pharmaceutical companies, about product improvements that they can achieve by applying our drug delivery technology.
They may not have thought of it in some cases.
Correct. And in many cases, they actually haven't.
And the regulatory burden, I'm wondering, is it lighter? I mean, we hear all kinds of not complaints, but a lot of difficulty incurred by pharmaceutical companies because the process is so demanding and so long and so vast, and so it should be, of course. But are you free of that because the drugs have been vetted by the manufacturer of the drug and you are there simply to deliver? Is that burden off your shoulders, or do you have to retest?
Yes, what we have to do basically, since in most cases the film that we developed are an existing drug, so we have to demonstrate bioequivalency with the existing drug that is already approved by, whether it's FDA, Health Canada, European Union. So our main market is in the US. So we deal mostly with FDA. So we need to administer the film, to patients to demonstrate that it is equivalent to the drug that we're basically comparing it to, so the reference drug, which is already approved by FDA. And then we submit that to the FDA, and it's a much faster pathway than,
Yes, of course.
developing a drug. It can take 9 to 12 to maybe 15 months, depending.
Which is the blink of an eye with the FDA.
Yes, exactly. In that industry, it's very, very quickly. So,
And
but
does
that's,
it happen that the retest fails?
it does, but I mean, what we do then, we just work on the formulation and we just try to improve. I think that, if we feel confident that we can achieve it, and at the R&D we've been successful, it's a question of time till we, we cannot be 100% certain, but my experience so far at IntelGenx's, every project that we have initiated into this 505(b)(2) pathway to the FDA, let's call it this way, has succeeded.
And Horst, we've been discussing the two most obvious examples because they're known to the audience, the nicotine patch and the film, the tongue system for mouthwash, but those are both over the counter. That's why so many people know about them. Concerning prescription medicines, I assume that that's where the home runs can be hit and out of the ballpark. If you come up with something that, or a company comes up with something that can work very well against Alzheimer's, and you ensure the delivery of that, you're in that price structure, and the price structure for drugs that are prescription is, of course, much, much higher. Is that the holy grail?
Certainly. We, as you briefly alluded to, are working on an Alzheimer's product, an oral film for treatment of not only Alzheimer's, but more generally speaking, degenerative diseases of the brain. And if we, in fact, will be able to demonstrate that our product, which is currently in clinical evaluation, is safe and effective, that will be a game changer for this company. There can be no doubt about that.
And concerning the home runs that I'm talking about, if it does happen and you do develop a mechanism to deliver a really efficient Alzheimer's drug, it's like you're getting married. It's like mom and dad. Both of you will have a piece of that, and you'll be yoked together, and profits will flow to both of you, your company and the drug company.
Not necessarily. That would apply to situations where the drug is still patent protected. In most cases, we work with molecules that are already off patent. And in the case of our Alzheimer product, what we're pursuing is a so-called repurposing of the drug.
Okay.
Repurposing means that a product has been approved for a certain indication by the regulatory authority. In most cases, we target FDA, but not necessarily. And through whatever mechanism, it is being discovered that the drug is effective for the treatment of other indications as well. If we take the example of montelukast, our Alzheimer's drug, montelukast was initially approved for the treatment of asthma.
Oh, really?
And only subsequently was it discovered that the drug is also very efficacious in the treatment of degenerative diseases of the brain.
So dementia, for instance, as well as Alzheimer's?
Yeah.
And
various forms of degenerative diseases of the brain. Alzheimer's, even Parkinson or Parkinson-related diseases are degenerative disease of the brain, and there's speculation that there might be efficacy of our product in those situations as well.
Well, Horst and Andre, it is certainly very heartening to think that diseases which not so long ago seemed absolutely unconquerable may indeed, thanks to your efforts and those of your colleagues in other companies, may be conquered. And we can certainly wish you the best for all the good reasons, and also for the entrepreneurial reasons, which is why I'd like you to come back in a future issue if you can. And we'll look at the trials and tribulations of making these things happen in biotech, including machines that you chase halfway around the world as if they were characters in a movie. It's really quite amusing and quite interesting. So I look forward, if you can come, to talking about that with you again. Many thanks and good luck.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Horst Zerbe and André Godin were our guests this week on the Picture of Health series of the World Show. I'm Bob Scully. Have a great week. Thanks.